Let's move on to the other big story. Now, even as the vaccination drive is underway in the country, and now we've had 5 days of vaccination being held across the country, there is still some amount of hesitancy among people. And in fact, a lot is being done even by the government to spread awareness, to allay the concerns and fears. But we have seen right from day one, there has been a relatively lower turnout across most states versus what the states were targeting, versus what the states had built capacity for, and versus what they were hoping to really achieve in all of these vaccine centers. And that's the story for most of your large states, the biggest ones that have been impacted by COVID. Now, the question here is there also a larger hesitancy, a larger apprehension for Covaxin versus Covishield? Are people more open to taking the Covishield, where the data that is available is from phase 1, 2 and 3 trials, in-depth data, exhaustive data of the trials conducted abroad, a vaccine that's also gotten approval abroad. Whereas Covaxin, the made in India, completely from scratch, developed research here in our country by Bharat Biotech, is the one that's still carrying out its trials. It's in clinical mode, as the government really calls it. They are still going through the phase 3 trials. That data is yet to be studied. Most experts say it's not going to be very different from what has happened in phase 1 and 2, but it is unconventional. And is that the reason that many people are actually scared? Now, let me tell you some of the turnout data that we've got, just to put things in perspective for you. For example, in Karnataka, on the first day, we saw about 63% of vaccination being done versus what was being targeted. On January 17, it went down further. We had reported that they were earlier in the day, a lot of problems that people were facing because of the Covishield app. There have been lots of technical glitches in the first couple of days. So that's where you see the drop. On January 18th, it went down further to 44%. And on January 19th, 47%. So this is not just because people are hesitant. This is also because of the fact that the platform itself, Covishield itself, has been slow, has been giving a lot of trouble, glitches, messages not going, data not updating, which has also led to a lower vaccination number than what the governments are hoping for. Look at Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu on the first day, it was very slow, 18.8%. On the second day, 18.78%. So that's been the concern even as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. Now, let's look at the data for Covishield. Now, keep in mind, Covishield is being given in larger numbers. A big chunk of the order that was given by the central government was for Covishield. They've only given an order for a few thousand doses as far as the Covaxin is concerned. So obviously Covishield is being given in larger numbers. On day 1, the target set was 16,000, but they managed to achieve 3,000. On day 2, it was the target set was 15,800 doses. They managed to give about 2,897 doses. So this is how, while the target has been 16,000, 17,000 in most states, they're not able to give that much. Covaxin, much larger in number, but it shows you the drop. So for example, as far as the Covaxin is concerned, the target set was 600. They managed to give only 99. That's the kind of drop we are looking at. So there is a huge concern when it comes to number of people who are wanting to take one vaccine over the other. Remember, right now we don't have a choice. The government is not giving you the choice. You have to take the vaccine that has been allocated, which is there available in that center. Yes, there is obviously a lot of transparency in terms of the side effects. Who should take this vaccine, who should not take this vaccine. For Covaxin, you also have to sign a consent form. But is that enough? Let's quickly go across to the panelists who are joining us this evening and ask them this question. Dr. Sanjay Pujari, Director for Institute of Infectious Diseases at Pune, is member of the National COVID Task Force. Dr. Rahul Pandit, Director for Critical Care at Fortis Hospital, also a member of the task force here in Maharashtra. Mr. R.P. Singh, National Spokesperson for the BJP. Dr. Nirmalya Mohapatra, Vice President, the resident Doctors Association at Armal Hospital in the national capital, and Dr. Anant Bhan, researcher for global health, bioethics and health policy. Good evening to all of you. I apologize for the delay, but we did have a bit of a breaking news coming in on the farms issue that had to be addressed. But let me actually start off with Dr. Mohapatra, because Dr. Mohapatra, your
Yes,
entire
madam.
association has decided to not take the vaccine, not take Covaxin, which is being given. You want Covishield jabs to be taken. Is that correct?
Mm, Actually, I wanted to clarify that this is nothing sort. We are not boycotting the vaccine as such or the vaccination drive as such. It was actually an internal meant to be the letter was meant to be circulated internally. Uh, uh, we were just telling about our concerns about the vaccine that we are getting in our institute. No one is boycotting or denying to take. It was just a group of doctors, or majority of the doctors were apprehensive about the vaccine that we are getting over here.
Why were you
We
apprehensive, and have your apprehensions now been addressed?
No, they won't. They won't till the data comes out for the more data comes out for the third phase trials of Covaxin. They won't be.
Okay, so are you and your colleagues, have you gotten vaccinated yet? Have you taken the Covaxin?
See, I am. My number has not come yet, and I have the luxury of waiting because a few 1 month back I was infected, so I have the luxury of natural immunity for myself. But that doesn't apply with everyone. There are a lot of people. The pandemic is not over yet. There are a lot of people who are waiting to get vaccinated. See, one word has been used widely: vaccine hesitancy. I see amongst healthcare workers, it is not vaccine hesitancy as such. I would like what I have seen in a few days that everyone wants to get vaccinated, but as they have to choose between two agents, and these two agents have different. They're different. Theoretically, they provide different kind of. Theoretically, uh, everyone has their own opinion about these vaccines. So most of them would like to have an option to choose amongst these two.
Okay, let me ask Dr. Sanjay Pujari this question. Dr. Sanjay Pujari, this apprehension, is it simply because the data is not available? The government keeps telling us on a daily basis there is nothing to feel scared about, there is nothing to be apprehensive about, all the due diligences have been done. But if the medical fraternity themselves have apprehensions, what do we expect of the common man then?
Yeah, so I think the problem here is people are looking at this vaccine rather than the platform. The platform that is used in Covaxin is an inactivated virus platform, and this platform has been used for many other infectious diseases vaccine, including rabies, polio, and influenza. Annual influenza vaccine is also an inactivated platform. So the safety of the platform is tested across millions of patients, and it has been reasonably safe. You don't see it to be higher, the risk of adverse events being higher than what is true for, say, other platform vaccines. Now, having said that, the other issue also is that the healthcare community perhaps needs to be made aware that this platform of inactivated vaccine is also being tried out by two different Chinese companies as well as one company in Europe. And if you look at the data, those are not published yet, but the phase 1-2 studies of the Chinese vaccines inactivated platforms are already published in a peer-reviewed journal, and they show similar immunogenicity and safety with what is being published with Covaxin. It's in preprint, still it's not published in a peer-reviewed journal. But if you look at the data, that is quite similar in terms of inducing an immune response similar to people who have recovered from COVID-19. the phase 3 trials of inactivated vaccine platforms. Remember, even Covishield phase 3 entire vaccine trial has not been conducted in India. It's a bridging study which is conducted in India. And the Covishield vaccine is the Oxford-Zeneca vaccine. The phase 3 trial was conducted in UK, Brazil, and South Africa. So essentially, these phase 3 inactivated platforms, similar platforms, they inactivated similarly by a compound called beta-propionolactone, and they are adjuvanted with aluminum compounds, have been already completed by the Chinese companies. And unfortunately, they are still in press release, but they're writing the papers. And the vaccine efficacy in Brazil was around 51%, in Indonesia around 91%, in Indonesia around 72%, and in for example, Turkey, it was found to be around 91%. So there is large data available there for the platform. So it's quite reassuring for us to consider that the same platform is being used in India, and in terms of safety and in terms of early immunogenicity. And I would encourage healthcare workers to read the preprint article, because it's an elegant study which has been conducted looking both at cell-mediated and antibody-based response. Now, considering that versus considering what is the risk of me getting COVID-19 today, what is the risk of me getting severe illness today and dying because of it, and these are the risk-benefit ratio that perhaps every healthcare worker should weigh and decide for themselves that what is really. The problem, I think, is more different, and that is adult vaccination in India is a new concept. It has not been taken up. We actually need to do annual influenza vaccines, but you see the uptake of it is very poor. So the apprehension is perhaps right, because we have never been adults, as adults, never been vaccinated. This is perhaps for the first time we are being asked to get vaccinated for a disease. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime disease.
Yes,
pandemic.
No, I understand that. I completely agree with you that because we've not had adult vaccination, there will be some apprehension. Whenever there is something new, there is apprehension. The fact that there has been we've moved at a very fast pace when it comes to finding these vaccines. Maybe that leads to some apprehensions for some people. They've also heard so much about the fact that, everybody doesn't even need the vaccine. We've managed so far. We will continue to manage. Look at the data. All of this may be playing on people's minds. But what I am also trying to understand, Dr. Anant Bhan, is, if there is a difference between people's willingness to take Covishield versus Covaxin, for the obvious reasons that Covaxin's data for phase 3 is, still not available. It's still under scrutiny, the vaccine itself in phase 3 trials right now. Is that a factor from the reports that we're looking at? What's your view? Dr. Bhan.
Yes, thank you for having me, Tanvi. So yes, I mean, it's certainly the case that since we are moving first with health workers, it's also a group which is more well informed about science, about medicine, about vaccines. They have experience of getting vaccines, of providing vaccines. And so they probably are also thinking through what is the evidence so far that we have in the public domain. And maybe that is influencing decisions to some extent. We have this interesting situation in India, which is sort of unique in the world, that we have one vaccine where there is evidence on efficacy, at least from abroad. So as Dr. Pujari was rightly saying, we don't have local efficacy data. And then you have another vaccine for which you have phase 1, phase 2 data, but you don't have phase 3 data. So given that this is the medical profession, they're probably looking at that information and then making a decision for themselves. Perhaps there is a need for more scientific communication. Perhaps there is a need for more transparency for the regulators, for the scientific expert committee involved to come forward and talk about the justifications. Maybe that will help with some convincing. But it's clearly the case that everyone has to do a risk-benefit calculus of their own. And, there's not much which is reassuring in terms of, for example, who covers the fact if there is an adverse event. In fact, there is a query which was sent to CDESCO, and they said, everyone has to take care of themselves. If there is something which happens, you are the one who has to figure it out, and maybe the company is liable. So, I mean, there has to be some confidence building here as well, given that these are vaccines which have just about going through their clinical trials, and we don't know enough about platforms from a long-term safety perspective. So just as anyone else would be worried on those things, medical professionals would be too. And so I think it's fair to acknowledge that as an issue and try to respond to that. These are likely very safe vaccines, as was pointed out, based on the data we know.
Yes.
But that doesn't negate the fact that you need to engage on issues which are worrying professionals.
Yes, Mr. RP Singh, that doesn't negate the fact that you need to engage with, medical professionals, healthcare professionals who may be worried at this stage and are hesitant to take one vaccine over the other.
Well, my request to my doctor from the RML is that whenever possible, I'm prepared to take Covaxin. I mean, if that can probably help you to clear that out, I'm opting myself. You can have my number from the guest coordinator later on. I put it on my Twitter also earlier that I'm prepared. Because, see, with the common man basic sense, that is a non-active vaccine which has been tried. I mean, another doctor was telling me it has been tried and tested. This procedure has been tried and tested many a times. And then, which is done in various other vaccines also. So why to be worried about it? I mean, I seriously think we should not be worried about the vaccine. And as for trial stage 3 is concerned, yes, efficacy has to be tested, as I know. I mean, I might be wrong. Please, any of the panelists can correct me. Efficacy still need to be probably to be tested. But as far safety concerned, I seriously think there's no doubt on the safety of the vaccine, Covaxin concern. So please, don't hesitate. I'll request all the doctors also and all the health workers and all those corona warriors who are in the first round of vaccine, that I'm saying so, and I'm saying with all seriousness that anytime doctor can call me, I will come and request the doctor to administer me the Covaxin.
Yes, but look at the reports that we're getting. We just showed the data of Covishield versus Covaxin, the kind of turnout that we are actually seeing, Mr. RP Singh, in many of the hospitals. Obviously, on day one, a lot of people didn't know what they were getting. Now that the healthcare professionals know in which center which vaccine is being given, they're a lot more careful about it. I'm reading comments which were reported in HT, even in Gurgaon, where only 35% of the healthcare workers for whom Covaxin was allocated actually turned up on Monday, which is much lower than the average turnout for vaccines when you compare it to Covishields, which is 60%. Similarly, in Maharashtra, while the drop for Covishield has also been witnessed because there were tech glitches with COVID, it's been extremely slow, some amount of vaccine hesitancy, the drop for Covaxin is significant. It's come down to a quarter of the people who are intended to be. So this is obviously a bigger problem, Mr. RP Singh. Don't you believe that the government needs to be a lot more proactive? A tweet or a comment maybe just by the health minister is not going to help. While I appreciate what you're saying about you getting the Covaxin, but maybe something more is required at this point of time.
See, I accept that a lot of doubts have been created, and Covaxin is facing the political meal in the system, and then it's because of that people, even doctors are human beings also. Other than being a doctor, they are much more knowledgeable on the subject, but still, that apprehension of something which can go wrong has been created by some political people. And it's very sad that the politics is ruling over the scientific research or scientific logics. But yes, government would surely do something more to ensure that doubt should be cleared and that doubt should be clarified. But as I said, doctors are there who know it better than anyone else. And as I said, Covaxin, as for the efficacy, yes, the outcome of the third phase trial has to come. But as far as safety is concerned, any of the doctors can tell me if it's not safe. As per my best of knowledge,
so we don't know. So the point is that they're not saying it's not safe, but they don't know how what its impact is, because that is still under scrutiny. That trial is still going on. So it's to say that we probably know, basis the earlier trials, that it's going to be perfectly fine, but we don't know so because the data isn't out. Phase 3 is still on, Mr. RP Singh. They gave the first shot under phase 3 just this month.
I'm sorry. You are also getting the same loop. I'm repeating it. Efficacy still need to be, the result of the efficacy still is to come. the final result. But as far as safety go, there is no question on that. I mean, they are co-panelists. I'm saying with my limited knowledge of what I read and understand and what I talk to the doctors in my domain and what I speak to the government officers in domain, as far as safety go, there is no concern. There's 0% concern about the safety of the vaccine.
Okay.
The Covaxin is very, very, very safe.
Okay, so let me take that point that you're making. Fair enough. Let me then ask Dr. Pandit this question. Dr. Rahul Pandit, then what's going on within the medical fraternity? Why is there still so much of hesitancy to get this vaccine?
Tanvi, thank you for having me on show. I'm going to be a bit candid. Mr. Singh, nothing against anybody, but it is taking a celebrity or a politician to convince the doctors that you take the vaccine. It should be the other way around. Doctors should be on a celebrity or a political panel and convincing everyone that you should take vaccine. So I think I think the vaccine is safe. I have no doubts about that. I concur with what Dr. Sanjay said and what Mr. Singh is saying. I think the efficacy is questionable right now. Yes, long-term effects, we don't know the long-term effects. Nobody knows about that, either Covishield or Covaxin. And I have been on national television even before and said I was happy to take any vaccine which came up my way. And I took my vaccine on Saturday as well. But I think the vaccine hesitancy is not the right word. I agree with what my co-panelist said. It is more of a cautiousness that they are looking at who else is taking and then they are going to basically take it. And they are also eagerly looking at the transparent data. If that data is just produced, that phase 3 interim analysis is showing so and so things, I think a lot of doctors would just come forward. Within the friends and community of the doctors, I see a lot of people who are extremely eager and waiting for their numbers to come, especially in Maharashtra. The CoWIN app seems to have some form of glitches all the time. So the SMSs and WhatsApp messages or whatever way they are going to convey it, the message is not going through. So a lot of hesitancy is there because their numbers are not coming. And second group is which are sort of waiting for their number to come and wondering that when will basically my SMS come or my call come so that I can go and quickly take a vaccine. So I think those people who are actually hesitant are very, very small. People are quite eager. I would be very, very clear. People are quite eager to take vaccine.
Okay, you're saying people are quite eager to take vaccine, and yes, in a country as huge as ours, there will be a large population, but there are those who are still not turning up. A part of it, I will say, and I will, emphasize, a large part of it is also because of the COVID glitches. Here in, Maharashtra, and especially in Mumbai, we suspended the vaccine drive on Sunday and Monday until the app got fixed so that people could then come. But in a lot of other places, people are not getting the messages. So personal calls are being made, by the vaccine centers and hospitals to say, okay, your turn is next. Please do come. A lot of our panelists want to make a point. Very quickly, Mr. R.P. Singh first, and then I'll go to Dr. Mohapatra.
Sir, I have to make a very small observation. Sir, celebrities or not, I mean, no one is a celebrity. I have not seen God in my life. There are 4 gods sitting on the panel right now. You are God centered, you're equal to God because I have not seen a God, living God. You are all living gods, sir, for us. Who save life is a living God. So, if God is worried, then God bless us, sir, please. And you are the best judge.
Okay.
Wasn't a personal comment.
Dr. Mohapatra wanted to make a point, and then I'll go to Sanjay Pujari. Yes.
Dr. Pujari, I wanted to say that we should be practicing evidence-based medicine. That has been drilled into us since we have been learning our paramedical subjects, that you should practice evidence-based medicine. So here I am not talking as I'm talking as a doctor. I'm not talking as an association representative. That evidence-based medicine says that whatever any subject expert or any anecdotes say, the data is the hallmark of authenticity. So if for one vaccine we have some advanced data, and for the other we have only theories and past performance and anecdotal evidence. So are we wrong in vouching for the other? Let me be clear. Are we wrong in vouching for Covishield, which has phase 3 interim data out and peer reviewed. And you said that the interim data for those similar platform vaccines in China are not out. See, what I believe that any set of data which is not peer reviewed is just numbers on a spreadsheet, nothing else.
Yes,
Okay,
Dr. Pujari.
Yeah, so I agree completely. I am a proponent of evidence-based medicine and I practice medicine evidence-based. But look at the context. You have treated COVID-19 patients, I have treated COVID-19 patients in the wards. And what evidence we had when we started treating them with convalescent plasma? What evidence we had when we started treating with steroids? So you have to look at in the context of what is the severity of the pandemic and the potential that the pandemic has, for example, to develop a second wave. So evidence, of course, is very important. I am an absolutely evidence-based man. But you have to also look at it in the context and try to reach as many people as possible with a platform which has been found to be safe. And I'm sure about the second point I wanted to make about this efficacy. You know why the efficacy problem has come in COVID vaccine is because the original Moderna vaccines, the mRNA vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine just showed 95% efficacy, while regulators all over the world wanted a cutoff of around 50%. That's all that they wanted to really see that a vaccine makes an impact at a population level in trying to curb the epidemic. Because this 95% has come, that the mRNA vaccines, everybody now is wondering that they should have a vaccine which should be at least 90% effective. So we have to be very practical. I'm not saying we should not be evidence-based. Certainly, whatever arguments I made are also evidence-based, but we have to look at it in terms of a context. COVID-19, I repeatedly say, is a disruptive and a destructive disease. We have seen what it does. We have worked in the wards. And we want to do something for the epidemic. And if we have availability of a platform, I'm not saying that, there are restrictions there are problems there, but that should not make us, not roll out something or be hesitant to take. Of course, it's finally a voluntary choice, but I think we have to look at in terms of the context. Many a times, jokingly, I say I would rather have the dead virus inside me rather than getting exposed to the live virus, whatever efficacy the vaccine has.
So, Dr. Pujari, I wanted to add.
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to add that there are a variety of opinions floating out. Like for at this moment you are saying both the vaccines are good. I'm saying that let's have Covishield for now. Let's wait for Covaxin. Some other person is saying that Covaxin generates being a whole virion inactivated vaccine. It will generate bigger immunogenic response. So let's have Covaxin. So the thing is, it's such variety of opinions, and no one is
So,
wrong
Dr.
out here.
Mohapatra, let me ask you this question:
No one is wrong out here.
Is it a matter of principle that unless the data is actually hard data is available on paper, you would rather go with the known, or is there that you have a specific concern of what could be the fallout or negative impact because of Covaxin?
See, what I have developed a simple analogy.
Yes.
See, a teacher, a student needs 40 marks to pass. At this moment, he can only score till 30, and one has scored till 30, the other has scored till 20. So if I have to choose someone, I have to pick someone, then I'll choose the person who has scored 30.
Okay, but Dr. Bhan, this vaccine is already passed for a common man to understand, and I know right now I have 4 doctors sitting on this panel and explaining this to us, and it's great to see between you all trying to convince each other and discuss this. But from a common man's point of view, the vaccine is already passed because the nod has been given.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I think that fine line in understanding. I mean, listen, we know that there is no equivalence also from the regulator perspective. They've both been approved, but the regulator also clearly has said that Covaxin is in clinical trial mode. We're just about figuring out what clinical trial mode is, and I think, we have seen consent forms only been coming through over the last couple of days. We've only seen the protocol released probably yesterday. So I think there is a difference between the two vaccines, and that I think has been also acknowledged by the regulator. That having been said, there's a decision which has been taken. Some of us have a little bit of concern about that. That has been expressed also on this panel. What I think is important is to engage, and rather than pushing anyone and saying that let's just do it in public interest. We have to talk substantively about the issues. If there are concerns around efficacy data not being available, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the evidence. If you can't convince medical professionals, it might be a harder fight when we go further downstream. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that there is a concern out there. And I think just as we have discussed it on this panel, we might need multiple panels, maybe at the hospital level, at the facility level. Let's have open, transparent discussions. That is how science grows. That is how medicine is practiced, that we rather than basically maybe going by the rule book, we actually talk about what the rule book says, what the evidence says, and then come up with an individual decision. Hopefully, over time we will have more uptake happening. It's certainly a great exercise. Vaccination is a major response for the pandemic, but again, in the absence of choice, it'll be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, Dr. Pandit, would you all like to add to this? How do we solve this? How do we tackle it? Is there a larger onus on not just the government and the state, but also the medical fraternity itself, within themselves and then outside to others, to have discussions and address some of the concerns?
I completely agree. We need to be more transparent. We need to have data come out as quickly as we can, if that's what's basically going to help people understand. And the medical community who understands the platform, who understands how these vaccines are safe, need to go out and talk to their colleagues, have more discussions, so that at least the fear of side effects or adverse reactions are basically allayed completely. So that the safety aspect is given a complete nod that yes, they are safe. And automatically, as the vaccination drive rolls out and few more days or weeks go by, I see this picking up. There is no question about that. I have no doubt about it that this will actually pick up. So these are initial problems. Those questions are likely to come into people's mind, because doctors by nature, as our colleague from RML is saying, are inquisitive. They need to know the data before they actually accept it. So that's how they are trained. That's how we are actually made to believe. So there is no harm in having more transparent data coming out.
Yes, I think that would actually essentially at the end of the day perhaps be the solution as more data comes about, as the trial goes ahead, and if Bharat Biotech is going to on a frequent, regular basis, every 15 days also update the authorities on how it's going, maybe that will be helpful. The problem point actually is the fact that people are not being given a choice. So those who are getting allotted the Covaxin are saying, but let it be our choice, and we want to go and get the Covishield vaccine. Fair enough if you say that both are the same and both are equally safe, but we will see the data that we are looking at right now, and basis that we have more trust in one over the other. That's as things stand right now. As more data emerges, those things could change. Many experts are of the opinion that because of the way the Covaxin has been developed, because of the fact that the way it has been designed, it is actually more impactful. But then again, we have to wait and watch when the final data really emerges. From Karnataka, where again healthcare experts have said that they should be given a choice and they want Covishield instead of Covaxin, to Tamil Nadu, to Maharashtra, to Delhi, whether you call it an internal letter or an external letter, to Gurgaon. Fact of the matter is there is apprehension within the healthcare workers. The government needs to see this as early signs of a big challenge. Not just within the healthcare community, but it's going to have an impact on the next round. Those above the age of 50 and 60, those with comorbidities. And so we need to start off with a massive awareness campaign right away. Yes, in their news briefings, the authorities, right from Mr. V.K. Paul to Dr. Harshvardhan, the minister, say that there is no concern. The vaccine is absolutely safe. But perhaps a detailed conversation is required. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.